My husband gave his late mother's diamond collection to his sister after promising it to our daughter. There is a specific kind of betrayal that doesn't just break your trust, but completely shatters your child's heart. For 15 years, my mother-in-law, Evelyn, told my daughter, Chloe, that her antique diamond collection would belong to her on her 16th birthday. When Evelyn passed away last year, she left the jewelry box directly to my husband, David, trusting him to honor that promise. For months, Chloe looked forward to her birthday, knowing she would finally wear the legacy of the grandmother she loved so deeply. But last night was Chloe's 16th birthday party. When she opened her father's gift, expecting the diamonds, she found a cheap silver bracelet. And just 20 minutes later, my sister-in-law walked into the venue wearing the entire diamond collection around her neck. My husband didn't just break a promise. He secretly robbed his own daughter to satisfy his spoiled sister. And the confrontation that followed has completely torn our family apart. My name is Sarah. I am 39 years old, and I work as a branch manager for a regional bank in Ohio. My job requires me to deal with contracts, legal promises, and financial integrity every single day. If there is one thing I have learned from my career, it is that a person's word is their bond. If you break a promise, you break the foundation of the relationship. David and I have been married for 18 years. We have one daughter, Chloe, who just turned 16. Chloe is a quiet, hardworking girl who doesn't ask for much. She doesn't care about designer clothes or expensive gadgets, but she had a deeply profound, unbreakable bond with her paternal grandmother, Evelyn. Evelyn was a traditional, elegant woman who possessed a stunning collection of vintage jewelry. Her prized possession was a magnificent art deco diamond necklace and earring set that had been passed down through her own family for generations. It wasn't just valuable in terms of money. It was the ultimate symbol of our family's history. From the time Chloe was a little girl, Evelyn would sit her on her vanity stool, pull out the velvet jewelry box, and let her try on the sparkling pieces. When you turn 16, my sweet girl, Evelyn would always whisper, kissing Chloe's forehead. This collection will be yours. It's my legacy to you. David was in the room every single time his mother made this promise. He smiled, he agreed, and he always told Chloe how beautiful she would look wearing them when she grew up. Last summer, Evelyn tragically passed away after a brief illness. The entire family was devastated, especially Chloe. In her final days, Evelyn called David to her bedside and gave him the key to her safety deposit box. She told him explicitly to keep the diamond collection safe until Chloe's 16th birthday, which was just 10 months away. David gave his mother his word. He cried, held her hand, and promised her he would handle it exactly as she wished. Because Evelyn's estate didn't go through a massive, complicated legal probate, she had already distributed her major assets and left the physical jewelry directly to David. The diamonds were entirely in my husband's possession. I trusted him completely. I never thought for a second that I needed to double-check his integrity. As Chloe's 16th birthday approached, she spent months planning a modest, sweet 16 dinner at a local Italian restaurant with her close friends and family. She didn't want a massive, expensive party. Her only request was to wear her grandmother's diamond necklace with her birthday dress. Mom, I feel like if I wear Grandma's necklace, a piece of her will be there with me, Chloe told me while we were shopping for her dress. Her eyes were bright with a sweet, innocent anticipation. I know, honey, I said, hugging her tightly. Your dad has them safe in the deposit box. It's going to be a beautiful night. 2 days before the party, I noticed David was acting incredibly distant. He wouldn't look me in the eye when we talked about the birthday schedule. Every time Chloe mentioned the jewelry, he would quickly change the subject or leave the room to take a work call. I thought he was just getting emotional about his daughter growing up so fast, or missing his mother as the milestone approached. I never, in my wildest dreams, suspected the sickening betrayal he had already executed behind our backs. The night of the party arrived. The private dining room at the restaurant was beautifully decorated with fairy lights and white roses. Chloe looked absolutely stunning in her emerald green dress, her hair pinned up beautifully. She was radiant, sitting at the head of the table surrounded by her grandparents, aunts, uncles, and school friends. David sat next to me, his posture stiff, his hands sweating. I reached over to squeeze his hand. Are you okay, babe? I whispered. Yeah, just tired, he mumbled, pulling his hand away to take a sip of his water. After dinner, it was time for the gifts. Chloe opened small packages from her friends and a beautiful art album from my parents. Finally, David stood up and handed her a small, square velvet box from his jacket pocket. The entire room went quiet. Chloe's hands were shaking with pure excitement. She looked up at David, her eyes filling with tears. Is this it, Dad? David didn't smile. He just nodded slowly. Just open it, Chloe. Chloe carefully lifted the lid of the velvet box. But the moment she looked inside, the bright, joyful expression on her face completely died. The color drained from her cheeks, and her lips began to tremble. I leaned over her shoulder to look inside the box. Resting on the black satin pad was not her grandmother's brilliant art deco diamond collection. Instead, it was a thin, cheap, standard silver chain with a tiny cubic zirconia butterfly pendant. It was the kind of mass-produced necklace you could buy at any local department store mall kiosk for $40. Dad? Chloe whispered, her voice cracking as she looked up at her father in absolute confusion. What is this? Where is Grandma's necklace? David cleared his throat, avoiding her gaze entirely, his voice sounding tight and defensive. Chloe, you're 16. That vintage diamond set is far too heavy and expensive for a teenager to wear to a restaurant. It's a liability. I decided to buy you something modern and age-appropriate that you can actually wear to school. But Dad, Grandma promised me. Chloe's voice broke, and a heavy, hot tear spilled over her eyelashes. You gave your word to her. We talked about this for months. Well, plans change, Chloe, David said, his voice dropping into a sharp, irritated hiss that made the guests at the table look over in discomfort. You need to be grateful for what you get. Stop being entitled over expensive jewelry. Before I could even process my husband's sudden, vicious hostility toward our daughter, the door of the private dining room opened. In walked David's younger sister, Amanda. Amanda was 34 years old, unmarried, and had been coddled by her parents her entire life. She was the definition of a golden child who never grew up, always demanding financial help and throwing tantrums if she wasn't the center of attention. She had arrived 40 minutes late to her own niece's birthday party. Sorry I'm late, everyone, Amanda called out loudly, tossing her designer coat onto a chair, but no one was listening to her apology. The entire room was staring at her neck. There, sparkling brilliantly under the restaurant's chandelier lights, was Evelyn's antique art deco diamond necklace. The matching diamond earrings were dangling from Amanda's ears, and the diamond bracelet was wrapped around her wrist. She was wearing my daughter's entire inheritance like a trophy. Chloe looked from Amanda's neck to her father's face. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She let out a small, choked sob, pushed her chair back, and ran out of the private dining room toward the restrooms, covering her face with her hands. I stood up from my seat, my heart pounding a furious, deafening rhythm against my ribs. I looked at Amanda, who was smiling smugly, and then I looked at my husband, whose face was completely pale. The puzzle pieces connected instantly, and a raw, volatile wave of maternal fury took over my entire body. Amanda, get out of this room right now, I said. My voice wasn't a scream. It was a low, vibrating whisper that cut through the absolute silence of the restaurant room. Amanda touched the diamond necklace around her neck, her eyes widening in fake innocence. Excuse me, Sarah? Why are you being so rude? I just got here. You know exactly why, Amanda. I stepped around the table, my gaze locking onto my husband. David, stand up. Walk out to the hallway with me right now before I humiliate you in front of your entire family. David didn't move for a second, but seeing the pure, lethal certainty in my eyes, he slowly slid out of his chair and followed me out of the dining room into the quiet, carpeted back hallway near the restaurant's office. The moment the door shut behind us, I turned on him. Tell me you didn't do what I think you just did. Look me in the eye and tell me you didn't give Chloe's diamonds to your sister. David threw his arms up in the air, his defensive anger flaring instantly. Yes, Rachel, I gave them to Amanda. It's my mother's jewelry, which means it's my family's property, and I have the right to decide where it goes. Your mother left them specifically for Chloe, David. You swore to her on her deathbed, I shouted, the tears finally spilling over my eyes from sheer disgust. How could you look at your daughter's face every single day for 10 months knowing you were going to rob her on her 16th birthday? Amanda needed them more, David yelled back, his face turning an ugly, furious purple. Amanda has been depressed for months, Sarah. She feels like she has nothing in her life. No husband, no family, and she was crying to me last week about how Mom always preferred Chloe over her. She said having Mom's diamonds would give her the confidence to start over. She's my sister. I had to protect her. You had to protect your grown, 34-year-old spoiled sister by breaking your 16-year-old daughter's heart? I asked, my voice cracking with absolute disbelief. Are you out of your mind, David? You just destroyed your relationship with Chloe for a woman who throws a tantrum every time she doesn't get her way. Chloe is a child. She'll get over it, David hissed, waving his hand dismissively. It's just rocks, Sarah. I bought her a nice silver necklace. Why are you turning this into a massive soap opera? Amanda is blood and she needed a win. You and Chloe are completely overreacting. Chloe is a child. She'll get over it. Those 6 words fractured something permanent inside my chest. I looked at the man I had been married to for 18 years, and I realized his loyalty didn't lie with the family we had created. His loyalty lay with the toxic enablers he grew up with. She won't get over it, David. And neither will I said, my voice dropping into a cold, terrifyingly calm register. I turned away from him, walked back into the private room, and grabbed my purse and Chloe's jacket. I walked into the restroom where my daughter was leaning against the sink, her makeup ruined by her tears, her small body shaking. Come on, sweetie, I said, wiping a tear from her cheek and throwing her jacket over her shoulders. We're leaving. What about Dad? She whispered, her eyes completely hollow. Dad doesn't live with us anymore, I replied. I led her out through the restaurant lobby, completely ignoring David and Amanda who were standing near the bar, and drove my daughter away from the wreckage of her birthday. We arrived at my house, and I immediately took Chloe up to her room. I tucked her into bed, brought her a glass of water, and sat with her until her breathing slowed down and she finally fell into an exhausted, tear-stained sleep. Once her door was closed, I went downstairs to the kitchen. It was midnight. The house was completely quiet, but my mind was operating with a sharp, calculating focus. I pulled out my laptop and logged into our joint financial accounts. As a bank manager, I know exactly how to track assets. I opened the digital ledger for our safety deposit box, which was registered at my own bank branch. I looked at the access logs. David had checked into the vault exactly 4 days ago at 2:15 p.m., right around the time he started acting distant. But then, I decided to dig deeper. I opened our joint high-yield savings account, the account where we had been saving money for Chloe's future college tuition. My blood ran completely freezing cold when I saw the balance. 3 days ago, David had made a legal online transfer of $15,000 out of Chloe's college fund. The destination account was a private checking account under the name of Amanda Miller. He didn't just give his sister the diamonds. He had literally cleared out our daughter's college savings to fund his sister's lifestyle, likely to help her pay off her massive credit card debts or finance her luxury apartment. He was completely draining our daughter's future to satisfy the endless greed of his sister, assuming I would never check the balances because he handled the online passwords. At 1:00 a.m., the front door clicked open. David walked into the kitchen, looking exhausted but still holding that arrogant, defensive posture. He saw me sitting at the kitchen island with my laptop open, the bank statements glowing on the screen. "Look, Sarah," David started, kicking off his shoes. "The restaurant scene was completely uncalled for. You humiliated me in front of my family. We need to agree to an apology statement to Amanda because she was deeply hurt by your attitude." "Shut your mouth, David," I said, turning the laptop screen around so it faced him directly. "Explain this transfer. $15,000 out of Chloe's college fund directly to Amanda's account. Now!" David's jaw instantly dropped. The arrogance vanished from his face, replaced by a sudden panicked sweat. He stuttered, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter. "Rachel, listen. Amanda was facing eviction. She owed money to some bad people. I was going to pay it back into the account next month for my bonus." "I swear, you are a thief, David," I said, my voice cutting through his lies like a steel blade. "You stole from your dead mother's wishes. You stole from your daughter's inheritance, and you stole from her education. You are a parasite on this family. It's my money, too," David yelled, trying to regain his footing, his voice cracking with desperation. "I work 40 hours a week. I have a right to help my sister. You took it from a joint account without my signature, which is a violation of our marital financial disclosure," I said, standing up and closing the laptop with a sharp click. "I have already printed out the transaction logs. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I am filing an emergency motion for asset freezing with my lawyer. And as for you, your clothes are already packed in the garage. Get out of my house before I call the police and report you for unauthorized electronic fund transfer fraud." David stared at me, his eyes wide with terror. He realized that his position as a husband was completely over. He had gambled his daughter's future for his sister's approval, and he had lost everything. He turned around without saying another word, grabbed his car keys, and walked out into the dark night. The next morning, the legal war began. I didn't waste a single second. I met with my family law attorney at 8:30 a.m. and presented her with the manila folder containing the safety deposit box logs, the unauthorized $15,000 transfer to Amanda, and a recorded video of Amanda wearing the stolen diamonds at the restaurant. My lawyer was a shark. By noon, she had secured an emergency ex parte court order that completely froze all of David's personal bank accounts and put a legal hold on his retirement portfolio to prevent any further dissipation of marital assets. When David's family found out about the legal freeze, the phone lines went completely wild. My mother-in-law's extended family, cousins, and aunts started bombarding my phone with toxic, furious text messages. "You are a heartless monster for kicking David out over family jewelry. Amanda is devastated. You are ruining her mental health. Families are supposed to help each other. You are acting out of pure greed." I didn't argue. I didn't send long paragraphs back. I simply took a screenshot of every single toxic text message, added them to my legal evidence file for harassment, and blocked every single one of their numbers. True power doesn't require shouting. It requires a documented paper trail. 2 weeks later, the pressure became too much for David's employer. Because my lawyer had filed the financial fraud disclosure as part of the divorce petition, David's logistics firm launched an internal compliance review to ensure he hadn't embezzled company funds as well. The sheer embarrassment and fear of losing his high-paying career finally broke David's arrogance. His attorney called my lawyer with a frantic settlement offer. David was willing to sign over his entire share of our marital home, agree to full custody for me, and pay maximum child support, on one condition. I had to drop the financial fraud allegations and lift the freeze on his personal accounts. "Tell him he has 24 hours to sign," I told my lawyer, "but add one more clause. Amanda has to return the diamond collection to my bank branch within 48 hours. Or the civil theft lawsuit against her personally moves forward on Wednesday morning." On Friday afternoon, I stood in the lobby of my bank branch. The heavy glass doors opened and Amanda walked in. She wasn't smiling anymore. She wasn't wearing her designer coat. She looked pale, exhausted, and utterly humiliated. She marched up to my desk, slammed the velvet jewelry box down on the polished wood counter, and turned around, running out of the building without saying a word. I opened the box. There, sparkling under the bright office lights, was Evelyn's art-deco diamond necklace, earrings, and bracelet. They were intact. They were safe. They were exactly where they belonged. It has been 4 months since the night of the Sweet 16 disaster. The divorce was finalized last week with a speed that left David's toxic family completely stunned. Because of the airtight financial documentation, the court ruled entirely in my daughter's favor. David's share of the house equity was legally transferred into a restricted, court-monitored educational trust fund for Chloe, completely replacing the $15,000 he had stolen for his sister, plus interest. David is now living in a tiny rented studio apartment on the other side of town. His credit score ruined, his reputation destroyed, and his income heavily garnished for child support every single month. Amanda's luxury lifestyle completely collapsed without David's financial injections. She was forced to break her apartment lease and move back into her father's basement, entirely isolated from the social circles she tried so hard to impress. They wanted to build a kingdom on a foundation of theft, and they ended up buried under the rubble of their own greed. But the real victory didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened yesterday evening. It was a quiet Sunday night. Chloe was sitting at the dining room table studying for her advanced placement history exams. The house smelled of homemade vanilla cookies and fresh coffee. I walked upstairs to my bedroom closet, pulled out the velvet jewelry box from my secure safe, and walked down the stairs. I stepped into the dining room and placed the box gently next to her history textbook. Chloe looked up, her hazel eyes widening as she recognized the velvet container. She looked at me, her voice a soft, hesitant whisper. "Mom? Open it, Chloe," I said, sitting down next to her and placing a warm hand on her shoulder. Chloe opened the lid. The brilliant diamonds caught the light of the dining room lamp, casting a beautiful, sparkling pattern across the room. She stared at them for a long time, her eyes filling with a deep, quiet emotion. She didn't cry tears of sadness this time. She reached out and touched the vintage silver medal with a trembling finger. "I can't believe you got them back, Mom," she whispered, looking at me with an absolute profound adoration. "I thought they were gone forever. A promise made to you by someone who loved you can never be stolen by someone who doesn't respect you." "Chloe," I said gently, picking up the heavy necklace and hooking it securely around her neck. "Your grandmother wanted you to have these, and as long as I am your mother, no one is ever going to erase your worth or steal your future." Chloe stood up and looked at her reflection in the hallway mirror. The emerald green birthday dress was gone, replaced by a simple gray hoodie, but the diamonds around her neck shone with the absolute light of justice. She smiled a brilliant, beautiful, unshakable smile, the smile of a young woman who knows she is protected, valued, and loved. We are no longer walking on the eggshells of a husband's toxic secrets. We are independent, we are financially secure, and our story is written exclusively by the women who have the integrity to keep their word.